On this week of the Life After podcast, I welcome Olympic gold medalist Dominique Dawes, the first African-American gymnast to win gold. Remarkable athletic career, but what's crazy is in this interview, you'll hear her talk about that's not even one of the top 10 biggest moments of her life. In fact, after her career, she just closed out the outside world to really do a deep dive on who she was post-athletic competition. And that, I think, was critical for her and her faith to galvanize what she wanted out of this life. As a mother who endured an incredibly difficult miscarriage and almost died. She's really redefined her life through the roles of what she's able to give. As a businesswoman, one that's empowering young girls and people to take on opportunities and training gymnastics and ninja academies. She's an awesome entrepreneur. You're gonna love this episode and you're gonna have a ton of takeaways. Go check it out. What's up, everybody? David Vobora, host of the Life After podcast it's the first time a gold medal has sat here on this table. Dominique Dawes, y'all, absolute legend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's really cool. You just got to flew into Dallas, came right here to Adaptive Training Foundation, our gym. You were just so gracious by speaking and sharing and answering some questions with our athletes out there. You just have such a presence. Maybe it's because I've had a massive crush on you since the 96 Olympics.
That's hilarious.
I mean, you are like up here in my like Hall of Fame of Olympians.
Did you have the Magnificent Seven poster?
I know my sister did. My sister did. I was like more on the, I can't have a gymnast poster up, but I loved it secretly. I had the dream team.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, it was in 92 with the dream team. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. How was that? Like traveling with, I was going to say like being in Olympic Village in Barcelona and dream team.
Yeah, we got to stay in the Olympic Village in 92. We did not stay in the 96 or 2000 Olympics because we were mobbed for whatever reason because we became so popular. But in 92, we did stay in the Olympic Village. And one day someone came up to us and said, hey, the dream team is here for accreditations. Do you want to meet them? Myself and a number of my teammates ran over. We lined up shortest to tallest because we were just programmed to do that.
Yeah.
And off walked Larry Bird off the bus. And he was like, hey, ladies, do you want to come on? And we got to meet Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Drexler, you name it. I know. We didn't. I'm pinching myself because I had a Kodak camera back then, the one that you would like rewind.
Yeah.
I have no clue where those photos are. I know, right?
That's special though. Like,
very special.
You lived it.
Yeah, I did.
And then the Atlanta Games. I mean, you want to talk about Magnificent Seven and larger than life.
That was unreal. Those were my second Olympic Games. I didn't think I was going to train for those games. I signed a full scholarship in 1994 with Stanford University, was supposed to go off to college, and it was during the time where Tiger Woods was going to be there, and it was such a big deal.
You're a Maryland girl.
I am a Maryland girl.
Yeah.
I am a Maryland girl, but a little birdie got in my ear and said, hey, there's an Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, 2 years away. I just won the national championships in Nashville as well as all events, and I was peaking. So I decided to go pro. Except a little bit of chump change, some money in the sport of gymnastics.
It was different back then?
Quite different. Yeah. There was no social media.
When I say pioneer, you've done a lot, right?
We were like digging, paving the way. And then I trained for 2 more years and made it to the 96 Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia. And I wouldn't change it for the world being a part of the Magnificent Seven.
Well, it's crazy because, I mean, I could read all of the achievements, which are abundant and incredible, truly landmark stuff. But one thing that stuck out as I was researching you, which was this quote, which said that the Olympic win in 96 is not one of the top 10 greatest moments in your life.
No, not at all. I know.
Right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's shocking some of the audience that's listening to this right now. And I think that's pivotal in the essence of what we're talking about on this podcast, which is life-altering moments come in many forms, right? But they show up different, and how we respond to them is really what makes people great, or when the greatness is then unearthed. So where does that rank in, your top things in your life, and maybe why is it not in the top 10?
I don't know where it ranks, because I would have to put a lot of thought into it, but it doesn't rank in my top 10 because it didn't result in happiness and fulfillment. And I remember standing on top of the podium with my teammates in the Georgia Dome with nearly 50,000 people cheering, billions cheering worldwide, and with my hand over my heart, the weight of the gold medal around my neck. And this is heavy. It's a heavy medal. And thinking I had sacrificed 13 years of my childhood for this moment, why am I not feeling complete? And at that time, my parents were going through a brutal divorce. Doesn't matter if parents are getting along during a divorce. It's a life-changing, altering moment for a kid.
No doubt.
But I remember thinking, goodness, my parents aren't going to be together. There isn't going to be this, fulfillment or happiness. What's next for me? My career is pretty much over. It's a pinnacle, and I'm not feeling complete. And I realized, it took many years after that to realize that that's not going to lead to happiness and fulfillment. It's the simple moments that I'll have with my husband or with my kids, or really changing someone's life. And that's why I'm so thrilled about the gymnastics and ninja academies that we have in Maryland that we look to grow. Because when I'm out and about, it's not about me, Dominique Dawes, and my gymnastics career. It's about a parent sharing with me their experience they're having at the gym with one of my amazing coaches that helped that child learn a cartwheel or get to the top of the rope or get to the top of the ninja wall. And that's life altering and changing. And that becomes a part of my legacy, but a part of my coach's legacy. And that's, for me, those are going to take over the first 100 amazing moments. And somewhere there is, of course, the Olympic gold medal moment, but it's those little moments that I think, where I realized lives were truly changed.
So you don't really identify as a gymnast anymore?
Identify as?
Yeah. I mean, I just think about in my own NFL career, right? Like today, I feel like I like that was almost this different version of me, this old self.
Yep.
Do you feel like that was, ages ago and it felt like it was this totally different you than you are today?
It's a totally different lifetime ago. I mean, even my husband's like, I can't believe that was your life. Like my husband, Jeff, he didn't watch me at the Olympics. He didn't have a clue who I was. Dominique Dawes meant nothing to him. And I'm like, marry me. This is amazing.
Yeah, perfect.
You're not going to put me on a pedestal.
Yeah.
You're not going to think that I'm, God's greatest gift whatsoever or complete perfection. And so, do I identify as a gymnast? Yes, it was a part of my life. It was a couple of chapters of my life, but that chapter, those pages have turned, and I am a child of God. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a friend. I am a daughter. I'm a business owner. I think those things for me are more relevant than what I did yesteryear, though I love talking about it. This is pretty cool to
it's established an incredible platform.
Yes,
and I think that again, as athletes, I had the privilege of sitting down with Nastia Lukin and talking about something similar, which is, again, once you achieved what you thought was going to bring you the ultimate happiness, and you trained your 12, 13, 14 years to be able to achieve this, and then all of a sudden it feels hollow. That can be a trap for a lot of people. I know when I transitioned, I was ready to numb myself with the pain medication more than I was willing to sit into who am I if I'm not known for what I do, right? Who's David Vobora without any recognition on the outside world for what I'm known to do and what I'm doing to achieve? So for you mentioned your family, and you light up when you talk about your family. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about your husband specifically.
Yeah.
You said some things out there on the turf when you were sharing with our athletes, and you started to get a little bit emotional.
Yeah, I always do. It's amazing.
He's the glue, huh?
He very much is, just because I want to encourage people. Like, honestly, you can make really good, if you marry the wrong person, it'll be pretty tough in life. And, and I married someone, I never had anyone around me that was protective of me, that told me that anything is possible.
Yeah, I got you.
And even starting the gymnastics academies, those weren't my ideas. That was my husband, who was a school teacher, came from an amazing school environment. And I always asked him, why do the boys always come back? And he's like, because they know we cared for them as young boys and we wanted to make them great men someday. We cared about them as people. And he worried about me because he said, wow, you never want to go back to your gym, the former gym that you lived at your whole childhood, or have a relationship with your coach. Sure. Why are you so guarded? And then when the abuses came out in 2012 from Larry Nassar and the sexual abuse of hundreds of athletes in the sport of gymnastics, I then started confiding with my husband about what I had gone through in the sport. And he said, okay, that explains a lot. And he said, you need to be a part of the solution. And he said, USA Gymnastics is not going to hire you to be the president. They don't want you involved. They don't want to change. And he said, you got to do your own thing. And you need to start your own academy and give back to this hometown of Maryland and even beyond, because of the support that Maryland has given me throughout the years. So he and I didn't know what to do of being an entrepreneur. I went to the SBA, filed for loans, things of that nature, applied for loans, and we got it off the ground. And it was really his encouragement. He always has had faith, and he's always had hope. And somehow we've been able to see it through, and now we're inspiring thousands of young girls in the Maryland area and young boys.
It's incredible to take what you endured. And again, I think some would probably say without that level of pressure and some level of abuse, so to speak, can you achieve what you did at that level? And what would your answer to that be?
I mean, I don't think you can develop resiliency or perseverance if you haven't gone through some extreme hardships in life. And I embrace them. I don't embrace pain and hardships when I'm going through it. Of course not. I'm not like, hallelujah, Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's hell, to go through certain things in life or to relive certain things or be stuck. But when you try to move beyond it and move forward and say, hey, how can I become a better person? How can I become a better wife or a better parent or a better friend or a better entrepreneur or whatever? You learn from those hardships and you start seeing those hardships even as a blessing.
No doubt.
And that's, I think, what I've been able to do through my years of hardship in the sport of gymnastics. And I could sit back and be like, woe is me. I was treated this way. I fell at the Olympic Games. I mean, no one talks about my Olympic fall. They only talk about the gold medal. But I fell at the Olympic Games. I wanted to quit. It was a very hard sport, but you know what? I stuck it out. I persevered. And that's why when I go through hardships today, I have this resiliency that I'm going to always see things through.
Yeah, that's remarkable to think about falling at the Olympics and getting back up and going back out, because
like, this is embarrassing.
The whole world watching.
All around competition in 1996. I was supposed to be on that podium. I was supposed to be one of the first African Americans. Gabby Douglas did it in London, and I was very grateful for what she accomplished in 2012. I was there working with Fox Sports and commentating, and I broke down on TV talking about it.
Beautiful.
But I look back at that fall and it made me a better person. I learned from that mistake. I came back days later and earned a bronze medal in the floor exercise.
Well, I mean, let's go into that because as the first Black woman to win an Olympic gold medal in gymnastics, right? I've said the word pioneer a number of times, but that sport lacked diversity, made way for the Simone Biles of the world, right? The Jordan Childs of the world. Actually, after Jordan had hers, situation and everything just devastating, right? Did you reach out to her? Do you have a relationship with any of these women today?
By nature, I'm just a very private person. I did just see Jordan, though, at the University of Maryland meet.
Okay.
And I told her, we got your back. Like, you don't listen to the naysayers. Look, I couldn't imagine being an athlete today and all the social media. And even when I put posts out there, the few hundreds or whatever, likes or whatever I may get on things, there's comments and I don't read them because I don't need to be lifted up from the outside world. And I also don't care to be pulled down by the outside world. And so I just let her know, hey, we got your back. I talked to her parents. I said, if she ever wants guidance or advice or needs some assistance with discernment, because I think that is very much key. Because when I was younger, I was very vulnerable. I didn't have mom and dad there traveling with me like she did to protect her. And there were a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing, as I mentioned out there, the opportunities, the money opportunities. I saw for whatever reason through what they were selling me, and I knew this is not what God had in store for me. And that's why I went back home, went to the University of Maryland, just kind of lived a very simple life until I truly felt directives from him.
Which is remarkable because most people would tell you, you got to maximize it while you're hot, right? You got to go right into Hollywood. You got to go, and you've done some remarkable things, like truly, like whether it's Hollywood or New York, on Broadway, like you've had all those, unique opportunities because of the way that you succeeded prior, but you took a bit of a beat out and got quiet.
To save my soul. To protect myself. I was speaking with a writer not too long ago, and I had shared a little bit of my story with him because I've never written a book. I've been asked to write a book throughout the years, and I feel as if this is the time. And we were chatting briefly, and he had said something that I had not heard before, but he said, it sounds as if your previous abuses in your household and in the gymnastics arena protected you from these abuses as a young adult, because I had such a thick wall up that when people tried to come in, and I've met every single person out there, I feel like it's insane, that I was very guarded. And my husband, who if you ever meet him, phenomenal guy, trusting, loving. His parents were very loving people. He lets everyone in. And he's like, oh my gosh, you would have had a spectacular life. He's like, what? He was like, you wasted that. And I'm like, no, that wasn't going to lead to happiness for me. And I am really a simple person that I'm a homebody. Like I love being with my husband at home, doing the most simplest things. And that's fulfilling for me.
That brings you joy.
Yeah, it does.
It's great as I believe you. I think there's a lot of people that say that and they're kind of like, and then they're over here and seeing how many got retweeted today or whatever. And I believe you. At least it's cool when you can do things and offer, your celebrity, so to speak, but not be tethered to how people receive it to feel worthy. But as an achiever, do you feel like there's been times in your life where if you're not creating the next thing or taking it to the next level, that I don't know, you don't feel as worthy? Has that
No,
been hard?
no. I mean, I don't know what it is, but last year, and this is my husband, he was like, gosh, you had such a spectacular year. Like he went through a list of things from Mr. Blank saying he wanted me to be one of
Yeah.
his limited
Yeah, by the
partners.
way, she's a minority owner in the Atlanta Falcons, ladies and gentlemen.
I know. Are you like
It's incredible.
It's insane. Like it just, but wonderful family, wonderful organization,
Sure.
full of people of character, of integrity, of just great people.
Yeah.
But that opportunity from signing a lease to our third location, going through the due diligence and getting a wonderful business partner with Trivest Partners on board. We have Adam as our CEO, a wonderful team of people, and a slew of other things that have been wonderful. But I recognize that may not be this year. And you know what? That doesn't mean this year is a loss.
Sure.
It's a different chapter. And this chapter might be a little quieter. It might be a little less waves that are happening, but it's still very fulfilling for me. And I really I love my time with my family. Like my husband complains when I want to bring everyone on a trip together. But that's fun for me. He's like, really? Do you want us all to come? And I'm like, I think it's because I spent so many years alone.
Right. That's what I was gonna say.
Alone the first 35 years. And again, 0 to whatever doesn't really count.
Yeah.
But I traveled alone with my coach and it wasn't an enjoyable experience, And then as a young adult, traveling on private planes and doing speaking engagements and being around these people, you're in a crowd of people and you can feel completely alone. And I think today, knowing that I have my choice of the people that I have around me
100%.
with regards to business partners and you name it, everyone else and my family, it's a joy to have them with me.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about something you've been very public about, which was the loss of miscarriage. Obviously falling in the Olympics is incredibly devastating. And so the difficulty in that, though, is drastically different than something like this. And I know that, it's far more common than people realize. Many people that are probably watching this have been touched in some way or impacted in some way with the loss of a child or a miscarriage. So take us back to, because you had the first two.
Yep, first two.
Okay.
That were 19 months apart.
Okay. And how old were they when?
Oh my goodness, they were itty bitties. I don't even think Quinn was 2. Maybe he was 1.5 or so. Quinn is my second, and then Kateri would have been maybe just 3 at the time. Interesting you bring this up because yes, it's a lot more common than one would ever think that women and men, because you have a partner
for sure
that was a part of this. And I think I've always viewed myself as, not anymore, because that 6-pack is gone, but I was a tip-top athlete. Like I was in great shape. I had a 6-pack even after birthing 2 children, and we were going for our third because my husband wanted his boy. And we got pregnant. There were definitely 2 sacks in there. And
your twins run in the family? Is there
twin cousins?
Okay,
That's it.
That's
like,
it. Okay.
Yeah. So it was like, oh wow. And we went to our midwives because I'm all about natural and things of that nature. And they said, hey, these are not going to make it. And I remember thinking, oh, well, she doesn't. 3-time Olympian, I am physically fit.
Yeah,
she doesn't know me. Like it's all about willpower. Like we think that the mind can control everything. And I was pretty much just saying, hey, I'm going to be fine, and so are the babies and what have you. And that was at 6 weeks when we went to see the midwife. And it was very evident things were not progressing like they should. And then again, being the natural person that I am, I ended up miscarrying a little after 11 weeks, which is maybe a little late to miscarry. And I was home with my 2 kids. And I remember feeling very faint and losing consciousness and literally crawling out of the house, going to my neighbors and just asking for help. And my kids were taken by one neighbor and one rushed me to the hospital. And it's interesting because I had told the gentleman, I was like, just don't go to this hospital, go to this. He's like, well, this one's closer. So we went to the closer one. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to tell him.
What was the reason? Just out of curiosity.
Just not a good reputation, let's just say. But again, I'm trying to, have faith in God. But I go and, it's evident that I'm, miscarrying and I'm bleeding profusely. My husband comes, my sister-in-law comes. They even have me do an ultrasound and they said, well, everything's clear, but yet nothing's stopping. And so they discharged me. And I remember thinking like, this doesn't feel right. And I was discharged and in walks this OBGYN, this young Indian lady, and I wish I got her name, an Angel, because she's like, oh, I thought I would just pop in before my shift's over. And she checked me and there was still very much the sac still in there. And to know that if I would have gone home, you never know what would have happened. That young lady definitely saved my life. And I remember after that miscarriage that me and my husband went through, because it's a loss for the guy as well, that I didn't think I would bounce back. I had these two little beautiful angels. No complications with those pregnancies. I had heard stories of other people, but I didn't anticipate I would be one of them. And I didn't think I would, bounce back from that. Had absolutely no joy during my life, even though I had these beautiful children, and somehow became pregnant with another set of twins 3 months later. And those 39 weeks were the most challenging weeks of my life, because you truly have to rely on him.
I was going to say surrender, right?
Surrender
completely. You have to just put total faith in, because you can wake up every single day in fear and worry and anxiety.
And that's how I was. And I wish I could have completely surrendered, but birthed them and everything went well. And to this day, when I look at Lincoln and Dakota, the twins, I'm like, if I didn't go through that pain and that loss, I wouldn't be blessed with you two beautiful ones. And do we always pray for the little ones that we lost? We call them Nick and Nick Jr. Don't ask me why. And Nicole and Nick Jr. And there's my husband's name is not Nick, so I don't know why he's a Jr.
That's all right.
It was Nickelodeon was big back then for my kids. But I feel a loss, but there is something that was gained, and it was the two twins that we ended up having after.
What would you say to somebody maybe that's enduring something similar or has lost a child?
I don't know how people go through hardships in life without faith. I think always, like you said, surrendering and leaning on him and trusting. I hear stories all the time, and I wonder how people do bounce back, but without him, without his grace, without his mercy, without his kindness, and that there can be some light at the end of the tunnel. And it might be starting a foundation, or it might be impacting other people that have been through something similar, and letting them know that they can move forward. They can move, maybe not on, but it's moving forward and trying to help lift people those around them. But I don't see how people overcome things without his grace.
You talked about your family a lot. Do you have any key sort of best girlfriends, like a group of people that are just have seen you through those storms, right? They don't care who Dominique Dawes is, the gold medalist, right? They just care about you.
Yeah, some of my teammates, and my best friend is out in LA. She's from Hermosa Beach, Wendy. She is the complete opposite of me, blonde, super tall, very bubbly, like amazing young girl.
Big extrovert.
Oh, such an extrovert. And when I go out there, she makes sure I get out of my shell. I go out.
You're like, I want to wear sweatpants and be in at 7 p.m., girl.
Exactly. She'll make sure I go to that yoga class or that Pilates class or CrossFit. She got me into CrossFit for 1 minute. I'm highly competitive, so I can't show up and not win. So it's horrible. But she, I'm like, what was I thinking? I don't get up the next day. But she's amazing, and she's known me since, goodness, she's 4 years younger, and we were in the Wheaton gym together, and she was one of my teammates, and she was training for the Olympic elite route. She got a back injury, nearly, I think, fractured her back. Had to take about 6 months off. At the time, we were around 4'11". We were like neck and neck, like same height. Bam. She came back, and
then gymnastic dreams were over.
It was over for her with regards to the Olympics. She ended up getting a college scholarship and had a great career. But 5'5", and went a different path. But we've just always remained close friends ever since.
I'm glad that you brought up her story, because, if you think back to your story at pivotal moments, right, where if this, then that, right? Or if I remember when Nasi and I sat down, she talked about the night before her and Sean went out to compete for the all-around, and they both reached over to their lights and like made eye contact, realized because they were roommates. Right? And they're clicking.
I was with Shannon Miller, so I get it.
Get it. And that moment of like, tomorrow, one of us is going to be on the top of the podium, and both of our lives are going to change drastically. And Nasi actually was into some really personal details with, and again, she's going to go into her episode, but they didn't talk for like 6.5 years.
Oh, easily.
Easily. So you're like, the ins and outs of all that. So for you in your own journey, like I'm sure you saw people that maybe even were more talented than you.
Oh, very much so.
That didn't end up going because of certain things, call it luck, call it, divine appointment, whatever. Can you maybe share anything that comes to mind as like one of those watershed kind of key moments where, gosh, it could have been her or me, and it just so happened that I was the one that got selected, or she fell, I didn't, or just I live in service of like these connect the dots sort
Yeah.
of things.
In the earlier part of my career, there was a significant amount of racism in the sport
Sure.
of gymnastics. And I felt it as a child, but you don't know what it is, what have you.
Yeah.
And for the 1992 Olympic Games, I rightfully qualified to those Olympic Games in Baltimore at the Baltimore Arena. I was in 4th place, but they decided we're going to do a selection process. And so no one's on the team. And I remember thinking, this doesn't seem fair for like the first, second, third.
Yeah, the numbers should tell me.
But if you watch the sport of gymnastics from back in the day,
Totally.
the young girls who they announced on the Olympic team at Olympic trials are a different set of girls than that march out at those Olympic Games. They make it seem as if it's because of injury or things of that nature. But Bella Caroli and the powers that be were very involved in the selection process. And so I never felt like I was ever the chosen one, even though I qualified rightfully, but I made it to the 92 Olympic Games in Barcelona. Likewise, in 1996, in 95, I was injured. I had a stress fracture in my wrist, a stress fracture in my, one of my metatarsals or what have you. And I had a cast on both limbs, like my upper limbs and lower limb. And I remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to make this Olympic team. Like I'm sitting at practice doing sit-ups for 5 hours straight. Like there's nothing else I could do. Somehow I came back, I competed in nationals, did extremely well, and then competed at the Olympic trials. But I was in severe pain. Yeah. Sitting in the stands with Shannon Miller and Dominique Motiano because they were injured. And I remember saying to my coach back then, hey, if I'm injured too, and they're going to rely on the selection process, I'm not saying I don't want to compete, but why am I competing?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense.
Because they don't want to risk getting more injured. Why am I risking it?
Yeah.
And she said, because they won't select you. She made it very clear. And if there's anything good that my coach said to me, she made it very clear, you're not who they want on the team. And I competed in those Olympic trials in Boston. Boston loves me. I have trouble in the city of Boston. I can't do it. And I was in 1st place. And I remember being like, there's something so unfair about this darn sport as they're sitting there. And then they were selected for the team. So in 2000, I guess they gave me my time to be selected because I competed in Boston again. The audience loved me. And after day 1 of the Olympic trials, I was done. I looked at the reporting of the media and all that crap. I read something about me that I shouldn't have read that threw me under the bus. I mean, that's why I don't read anything about myself. I know myself.
I get it.
And I said, you know what, I'm done. And I had a boyfriend back then who had an amazing family again. I only try to marry
Smart. Smart moves.
Yeah, because I just don't have a family. And so he had his parents come up and wanted to support me. And they were going to get my back and say, hey, do it for the fans. Don't do it for these powers that be. And I competed. I think I was in 9th place. And then they ended up selecting me.
Got it.
For that team. Are there girls that were more talented than me at that time? Very much so. But what they didn't want is they didn't want the drama. And they knew that I was programmed.
Because you're a star at this point.
Well, not only a star, but I was a robot. They knew I wouldn't say anything bad. Larry Nassar was our Olympic doctor in 96. I said nothing. He was our Olympic doctor in 2000. I said nothing. And they knew, hey, we've got her controlled. She's not going to say anything that's controversial. And so they selected.
Fall into line.
Exactly.
It's wild how much politics, and I know it's in a lot of sports, right? Especially through Olympic seasons and the cycles of that, right? And who's the most marketable or this or that. But I mean, you literally are competing in a sport where there's judges who are giving you scores who at times we go, what? How can that, right? So it's not even that objective at all. So you go through and internally people have no idea what you're really dealing with the abuse and the pressure and the pain and the coaches chewing you out and the, the mind games, right? Because they want to see you become that robot so that you're largely, kind of manipulated into the mold that they need. Yeah. And then you could go out and have the best performance of your life. And your skin color may be the reason, right? Why you live that.
Yeah, it was my skin color. It was my bow legs. It was my flat feet. It was I was not of the pedigree they wanted. Now, they would have wanted it if I came from Caroli's.
Right. Ooh.
A lot of people did send their kids to Caroli's because he would build people into becoming champions, but he would break the individual on the way there. Yeah, of course. But the politics worked in his favor. So if you were associated with his facility, many times you scored high. And I know it was back in maybe 92, my coach threatened to send me there because I didn't like training by myself at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was the only one in a freezing cold gym, and she's yelling at me, and I'm like, there's no one here. Like, this is so not fun. And she's like, I'm going to send you to Crowley's. And I believed that she had the power to do so.
Right.
Like, she's.
Yeah, you don't know anything different. You didn't have the family support.
Nope.
Anybody had your back.
Exactly. So I actually thought that was going to be in the cards for me. And with that would have come any more wins.
So is it taking you, kind of years after, in retrospect, looking back at things and being like, well, that wasn't right, right? and I know that you, back to what your husband encouraged you to do, is to be a proponent for those that are, coming up next, right? And I know that there's been a lot of USA gymnasts that have taken a stand and been very public in a lot of different ways. And I know you were involved with LeBron and putting together a film called Golden, right?
The journey of USA's elite gymnasts on the road to Tokyo. Super long title, but it was great.
But check it out, because I mean, these are the types of things that I would say, as I've done my research on you, the things I admire most are the ways that you've positioned to make an impact in the way that is right for you. Meaning, there's so many people that want to be, again, like, and you have been at the White House or with presidents or with some of the most significant business people in the world, and yet you're not a here I am person, right? You're there because you want to move the needle for things that you care about. And that's really evident. And I think that that's something that's, I find the most respect for you in that.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah,
I do appreciate that.
It's been really cool to kind of dig into your story and think about what is kind of significantly impacted you as an entrepreneur. I want to go into talking about kids getting active. I know that Obama appointed you part of the presidential council. You've been big on not just motivational speaking, but being a proponent for fitness initiatives. I know that the Gymnastics and Ninja Academy is, people probably think, oh, she's running this gymnastics gym to create the next Olympics, but it's not that.
No, not at all. It's really to make sure that kids have a positive experience in the sport of gymnastics and ninja. And what we like to advertise is that we are truly developing the whole child. It's about physical health. We know that back in the day when I was co-chair, it was 1 in 3 kids were obese. They were living a very sedentary lifestyle. Now, COVID has probably expedited or increased that number tremendously. And so we want kids and families to understand the importance of physical activity and physical health. Then there's mental, emotional, and social health. Social health with regards to socializing with friendships and developing friendships and having fun and getting to know positive role models and their coaches that believe in them. Like our kids, they're excited about ninja. They're excited about gymnastics, not because my name is on the door. I mean, it helps a little bit because parents grew up kind of remembering me, but it's because of the way the coaches make them feel each and every week. They put a smile on the kids' faces, and it warms my heart. I interviewed the first 100+ people that we brought on board, and I didn't hire everyone. I was only looking for people of character, of like-minded character, and we truly felt like we could teach the skill. I don't want to bring in experienced gymnastics coaches that know all the X's and O's of gymnastics and all the techniques or what things of that nature, the drills or progressions, but yet you're a miserable individual. You're a cruel individual, and you're going to damage these young kids that come through my doors. My 4 kids matter, but so do the other thousands of kids that come through our doors. And hearing the stories of my coaches that say, hey, I was coaching this kid and he sees that I always love wearing a red cap and now he wears a red cap. And I mean, like my coaches light up knowing they're role models. They're changing lives. It's about their legacy too. And that is what I think is so special about it. It's not the Dominique Dawes brand. It is what we're creating in this culture, very much like you're doing here. I mean, the stories I heard, like they're like, I can't explain this, but it's a family, it's a community, it's changing lives. Amazing. Many young men were sharing with me how they came in a wheelchair, told they were never going to walk again.
Crazy.
Yes.
And talk about, like, we can put the stuff in front of them, but it's miracles.
Exactly. And I think having the right people.
Right, because empowerment is what we're talking about here, right? Like, that's the through line. And it doesn't matter what arena, like if you're passionate about, art, right? Use it to empower somebody and use that as an outlet so hopefully they can avoid similar scars that you've endured. I mean, you told a beautiful story about your daughter. Is it back handspring? Yeah, maybe share that. Again, if you
my 9-year-old daughter just did a back handspring on the high beam. That's a very difficult skill for, like, if I get you on a high beam, you're not doing a back handspring. Not a chance whatsoever. Not even a former gymnast. Like, I would be like, oh, let me start on the low beam.
I couldn't even stand on a high beam, just for the record.
No,
I'd be up there.
We got to change that.
Baby deer up there.
We got to change that. When I was young and I learned a back handspring, I went through there were scars on me. Like they were yelling at me, they were slapping my leg, do this, you got to do this. And I remember then hiding in a bathroom when I had to do a series of back handsprings and not terrified, not wanting to come out and do this. Even to this day, I'm like 48 years old and I'm like, I can take myself in the bathroom and not leaving because I was so afraid. And they had no kindness, no compassion, no empathy. My daughter, Quinn, did a back handspring and she's smiling. She's like, oh, mommy, I did a back handspring. The coaches sent me the video. They're like, we're so proud of her. There were no scars along the way.
Which proves that you can do it either way, right?
Yes, you can do it either way. However, at our academy, we are not striving to create the next Nastia Liukin or Simone Biles or Shawn Johnson or Jordan Child. The level of sacrifice that's needed for that, I hope it can be done in a healthy manner, but it's a major sacrifice. I want kids to have a fun, fruitful experience in the sport of gymnastics, and I want them to use the sport and not have the sport use them. The fundamentals that you can learn in the sport of gymnastics and ninja can be transferred into with other sports, football, soccer.
I remember being in elementary, we did gymnastics stuff as foundational athletic movements. And I feel like today it's like here in Texas, especially, it's like you're going to pick your one sport at the age of 7 and we're going to sticking with it. It's crazy. It was like, dude, playing basketball helped my footwork for football, right? Baseball helped my hand-eye for this. And so I love that you have the ninja. The ninja component is really cool.
That is super cool.
And my kids love the ninja gym stuff. Like there's a couple here that they'll do, like, my friend had a birthday party and it was at the ninja gym. Have you done some of the ninja stuff?
Because I'm smart.
Okay, I was gonna ask you that. I was like, I need video of Dominique Dawes doing some crazy fish ladder thing
Like I'm 48, and when we started the gym, what was I, 44 or something like that? Yeah. And people are like, oh, do you still do it? No, I'm wise. Like I've closed that chapter. Like I'm gonna do something and think I can do more, and then you'll see me in the hospital. Like I'm not.
What's a goal today that scares you? And not scare in a way that's fear, but like, is there something that you'd be willing to share with us? It's like, back to we were talking about God's timing, and your husband being complimentary, but again, not being so sewn up in this has to happen this year for this year to matter, to have a success. But like, is there anything that's out in front of you that you'd be willing to share?
I think I've learned to be appreciative. I've learned to be appreciative for each and every day. I think, like you talked about, like my journey and what I've been through in the hardships. I don't have that attitude of woe is me. Yeah, it happened. I got over it. I'm trying to do something better and I'm trying to change certain things in the sport. But I also look at it like there's many kids that didn't have parents that became addicted to drugs as a young child because of the environments that they were in, didn't have nurturing, any support, any food, any clothing. Like what I've been through is a drop in the bucket compared to what many kids are faced with each and every day today. So honestly, I'm very appreciative and grateful. And if I can find a way to change people's lives just a little bit through our Gymnastics and Ninja Academy or words of inspiration or encouragement, I'm going to do that. But I'm not going to have that woe is me type attitude and become stuck in thinking it was that hard for me.
Do you think that like when gratitude is present, fear cannot be?
Yes, I think, it's interesting. I always have the fear. I think there was like this darn seed that was planted in me that I'm having trouble weeding out. Sure. But maybe I don't know. It's a very good question.
Well, I think that, I don't know. I know for me, like had I not endured, actually my story is unique. At 10 years old, I was raped by an older boy. I wanted validation. I was confused, and ultimately it was a wound that I say this, I would not have made it in the NFL had that not occurred. Because I put on the armor, which was sport, so nobody asked me what was really going on. Yeah. Because I was scared, I felt broken, ashamed, all of these different things. Yeah. And with my faith, I wasn't supposed to all of it was just like, I needed to stuff this down as far as I could. Yep. Well, then after getting out of the NFL, I realized why I was coping with these opiates, right? Just because now the identity that made me safe and made me feel worthy was suddenly then torn off. Yep. And so I wonder with, again, not saying that you have to have endured something like abuse at that level, but I wonder what it is in you that drives, that gives that sort of underlying thing like, man, there's more out there for me.
I don't know, but I always say this when people ask about legacy, I always turn it to my home life. I've come across a lot of people that are successful, and people might even say that I'm successful because of what I accomplished in the sport or maybe what's going on in my life. But I think the thing is, I feel as if your home life is not intact, and I'm not saying it has to be harmonious in marriage because they're two completely different
It's hard.
people.
Yep.
So hard. Coming together as one. But for me, I will safely say I cannot accomplish one other thing in my personal life and still be fulfilled if I've got the relationship with my spouse and we go at it. Trust me, my personality is hard, but we're committed to one another. We're committed to him and his will for our lives. We're committed to being good parents and me having a relationship with my children. Like that to me is happiness.
That's real wealth.
That's real wealth. Like there isn't, I mean, not that I don't have business goals. Of course I do.
Sure.
Like Adam and I communicate quite a bit. Our partners communicate quite a bit. There's things that we want to achieve. But if I achieve all of those great things in the world's eyes, I will be viewed as successful. And if I negate my 4 children and allow the world to raise my children or social media to raise my children, and they become broken, abused, and neglected individuals, I feel as if I would have failed.
Amen.
And so for me, it's real. I mean, I can't talk about it enough. And you know, like it's my kids as mom, they didn't ask to be here. Like I chose, I said yes. And I chose to be mom. They need me. And I'm not mom like, oh, when I'm in town or, you know, until you get 18 and then good luck in the world. I'm mom as long as God keeps me on this earth. And I am going to protect you and nurture you and give you everything that I was not blessed with. You know?
I think that this day and age, the instant gratification, the social media side, the little hits of, you know, like I think people get in these traps where it's destination thinking. If I can just get that, if I can just do this, then the rest is taken care of, you know? And I think that that's the trap. It's like, I believe that we're kind of bouncing from X to X on a map, you know, hopefully becoming a little bit more like Jesus along the way. And then eventually we realized that like there was so much joy in being all the way human and not losing sight of the fact that, I know I think about this with my kids, like they've grown up around this gym. They'll ask for a wheelchair Barbie, or if they get a normal Barbie, they'll rip the leg out so it's like one of their friends. They don't look away from someone who's in pain. They can operate with compassion, walk up to a homeless person and say, what's your story? And they really mean it. And I think that that's something that I can feel in your presence is whoever's right in front of you, you sincerely make and create the space for. And I think that that's a mark of someone who, again, has been in circles where, you know, there's lots of people that those handshakes can do a lot for you, but they treat the janitor or that person the exact same.
And that I will give credit to not only my faith in God, but also my husband. Because I've been so wounded, I have the walls up naturally. And he is the one that's like, you have to break down these walls because there's so much good that you have in you that you can give this world. He is going to that homeless person. He is wanting to go to the prisons and help those that are incarcerated. He's got that loving heart. I'm working on it and getting those walls down because I'm afraid I'm going to be wounded again. I said to a priest a while ago, he's now since passed away, that I felt as if it was a burden being known because you had to turn it on and be a certain way and have a certain personality and have a certain look. And he reminded me it is a blessing because you have the ability to touch and change lives in a positive way. And he said, remember how many people are invisible in this world. And so it is a gift, but I do have to consciously make sure I'm tearing down these walls to be able to give more of myself.
I remember I was 8 at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. I grew up in Eugene, so Dad was a Nike count. And Carl Lewis was running.
Nice.
And I remember I was right there with my hat to get his autograph, and he just sort of. And again, I'm not here. I'm not here to bag Carl Lewis. He might have been.
Carl Lewis sent me flowers.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I'm sure Carl Lewis was a good guy. But I remember being in the car with my dad, getting into his truck, and on the way home, I said, "Dad, if anyone ever asks for my autograph, no matter what, I'm going to make sure I stop." And I make that person feel like the most important kid or whoever that is.
You never knew it. What life you can change. Yes.
It's like looking someone in their eyes and treating them like a whole person. That is true empowerment. And, you know, whether they can do a backhand spring or not isn't necessarily tethered to their worth or, you know, it's attitude and effort. You know, and I think that's when I think about my kids. It's like, you'll love this. My 11-year-old daughter, she calls me and she says, "Dad, I'm trying out after school. Can you pick me up an hour later?" Okay, cool. I don't know what you're trying out for.
You don't have a
good. Pick her up. She gets in the car. She's like, "Dad, guess what?" I said, "What?" She said, "I tried out for the step team."
Oh, nice.
Now, hold on a second. Just real quick. Let's just check
like
the
my husband,
picture.
he has the rhythm.
Okay, I said, yeah. She said there were 67 girls that tried out, and I was the only white girl.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, this is my surprise face, right?
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, she makes the team. Right, which is awesome.
Yeah,
When we go to the basketball games, we get there like, yeah, we're here for the step team. They're like, oh, you're Leole's parents. Like, they know that we're.
Yeah.
But I love it because, like, in football, it was great for me. Like, I was more of a minority the higher I got, right?
Yep.
And you know, and that was really healthy for me to have this like cultural. I remember one of my teammates was from Fifth Ward, New Orleans.
Okay.
And when, you know, guys were kneeling for the flag and like I come from 3 generations of Marines, very patriotic family. And in the locker room, we had these conversations because he grew up with, hey man, anyone in a uniform is there to oppress you.
Yeah.
And so having that sort of understanding of like, I didn't know social injustice at all like he did.
Yeah.
But being able to explore each other's side and then come back gave me a different respect and a little space around my own beliefs and a whole lot more respect for what I didn't understand.
Yeah.
How have you, especially with racial issues, because I feel like you've been very public in a lot of ways and spoken very poignantly to your opinion. What would you encourage people that are making comparisons that are not helping the conversation?
Yeah.
How would you approach, you know, encouraging people to have healthy conversations about race, or your example of being the first Black gymnast to win a gold medal?
You know, I would say one of my mentors, she has now since passed away, Janet Hill, the mom of Grant Hill. And she went off to, I think it was Wesleyan College, and I think she was there for a short period of time. She was one of very few African Americans at that school at the time. And she immediately called home and said, Mom, I don't like the way I'm treated here. What have you? Pick me up. I'm done. And her mom gave her advice and said, you don't want to judge one race based off of a whole race based off of one individual and interaction you had with one individual. And so that would really very much be my advice for people. I know in the sport of gymnastics, I was treated a certain way, but I don't have that same mindset today. I'm going to judge you based off of how you interact with me or how you treat me and your character versus looking at a whole race as a whole and saying, you know, they're going to suppress me. They're not going to allow me to get my dues or what have you. I mean, I'm married to a white guy. So, you know, like I'm not going to judge that way. But I think that's the advice I would give to people is, you know, don't judge a whole race.
Yeah.
You can make that judgment based off of that one interaction with that individual. I think that was good advice.
I'm going to steal that and share it at the dinner table with my kids tonight.
Look it up because she tells the story much better than I did way back in the day. But I think that's advice.
Well, I know we're tight on time and I want to be respectful of your time. Any last thought that you want to speak to as you think about, again, just not just your gymnastics career, but sort of the way you're approaching the world today where people watching could find a little sliver of something to maybe apply in their life?
You know, I think it's just, I want to give people a reminder of embracing those little moments in life. You know, those little moments that many times that will pass us by and we'll neglect. Just the other week, my husband and all 4 kids, we were in Florida, and my kids wanted to get up to see the sunset. And when we got up, my husband was like, I'm sleeping. I was like, okay, fine, that's fine. You know, because sometimes he actually will go out with us. And it was such a spectacular moment that I cry all the time. Yeah. And I'm like shedding a tear as a mom and taking photos and being like, this to me is success. This is so fulfilling. And guess what we're doing? We're just spending time with one another. It's not that we're becoming the first, or there's not a statue being, you know, erected in our honor, or we're not at an NFL game and there's 100,000+ people cheering. But it's simple, just looking at God's great creation of our earth. And I think it's like people need to appreciate the little moments in life because they are a lot bigger and more spectacular than you will ever know. I know that when I'm on my deathbed and God willing, I get to my deathbed. Because sometimes you don't get that blessing to have time to get things right, that I will look back at those moments and smile, you know, and I want people to appreciate that because I don't think we appreciate those little moments.
No, it's so true. I know our kids, we think about that ball game or that really fun trip or that thing, but really the time where they're just able to feel safe and be real, like that's all they need. You know, I mean, my middle schooler that I just mentioned, like, I'm getting less and less cool every day.
Oh, yep, exactly.
And now it's
so not cool.
Sorry, that's cringy. You're so cringe. I don't know the words.
Is that now?
Yeah, now it's cringe. But yeah, you're so right. It's taking a moment to recognize the miracle that's unfolding right in front of you, and it doesn't have to be Instagram worthy and all these things. It can just be.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
And even if it's Instagram worthy, do it for yourself. Don't do it for the reaction and responses and likes. Do it because you want to share it with those that you know.
Yes. Which is what you're doing through your gym. And again, you're building intrinsic self-esteem, worth, value, and motivation, right? Because extrinsic, right, if they're doing it because Dominique Dawes' name is on the thing, that ain't gonna work because no one knows it's supposed to be you. You know, you were the one-on-one. And I'm so grateful to have had this conversation.
It's a lot of fun, and I love the fact that I came here and saw the amazing work that you're doing here in the lives that you're changing.
I know that this is going to help a lot of people and it's going to encourage a lot of people. So thank you for being a guest on the Life After Pod. And that's a wrap, boys.
Thank you.